Live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cover One Roundup here live on the Cover One YouTube channel each and every Monday night, or subsequently wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, Kyle Silagyi, joined this and every week by co-host David Fox. And today we are going to briefly look at this Patriots game that happened last week with the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills win 24-10, but we're not going to talk about that too much because that game happened nearly a week ago, and people have already set their sights onto the New York Jets. That game happens on Sunday, obviously. So we're going to talk about that game, and then the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. We're going to talk about each of the Buffalo Bills' remaining games on their schedule. Of course, the Buffalo Bills now control their own seeding destiny. We'll get into that here momentarily. Everything went right for them yesterday. Just around the league, Bills are now the number one seed in the AFC. Ball don't lie, right? Just as it should, just as the Bills should be. So we will get into all that, preview each game, and that's probably going to take a long time. So by the time we're done with that, we'll do true or rubbish, and then we'll be done. So David, what's going on? How are you?
I am doing great. I am no longer in someone else's home watching their dog, so there will be no random intermittent barking in the background. I don't know if that's a plus or a minus for some folks who actually like dogs, but you're not getting that this week. So,
see, I'm a big dog guy, love dogs, but I don't like the dog barking. Right? That's you gotta live with it, right? You got to take the punches, but. So, as I said, here's what we're doing. We have a Patriots recap that's going to be quick, 5 minutes, no more, no less. Then we're previewing the rest of the season, as I said, true or rubbish, and other shenanigans, hijinks even. But before we get into any of this, we have to make like Terry Pagula and pay the bills. This show and Cover One in general are brought to you by BetUS, who we will hear about from now via our friend Greg, or colleague, right? Boss? Via Greg.
Hey guys, Cover One is excited to announce our new partnership with BetUS. BetUS has live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business, and an easy deposit and withdrawal process with the fastest payouts in the industry. Our loyal Cover One fans get a choice between two exclusive offers, either a 125% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,500 or a free $50 bet with no deposit required. Just use promo code COVER1 on the links provided in the show description below. BetUS, where the game begins.
I didn't want to call Greg a friend if he's in it, like it's awkward, right? Because then what if he's in the comment section and he's like, we're not friends, right? We work together.
I mean, I'm gonna call him a friend anyway because he sends me money. So
okay,
anything to keep that going, I'm all about. So
right, yes, it's a
shout out to the main man, Greg, the man who really makes Cover One work. I mean, where would we be without one Greg Thompson? I expect an extra $10 in my
bonus. Right, you hit the incentives. This show and Cover One in general are also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. David, can you tell us a little bit about Underdog?
I would love to tell everyone about everyone's favorite fantasy website, Underdog Fantasy. Now, did you get to draft Josh Allen in your home league? He did pretty good. So, good for you if you did. If you didn't, whatever. If you use Underdog Fantasy's Pick'em contest, you can win money predicting if Josh Allen will go over his yard total, his touchdowns, his completions, and more. If you think Allen to Diggs will blow up this week, you can put them both in your Pick'em. And I mean, that's a pretty good bet because they kind of blow up every week at this point. If you predict up to 5 different over-unders correctly to win 20 times your money, you can also use the promo code COVER1 when signing up to make your first deposit, and Underdog will match that deposit up to $100. It's 100 free US dollars. Even with inflation, that's pretty good. So that is the promo code COVER1. That's the number one. Sign up today and start winning today.
Promo code COVER1 for both Underdog and BetUS. So thank you both, BetUS and Underdog, for sponsoring Cover One. And then also Cover One Pass. We'll hear about that later in the show. Okay, David, are you ready to talk about football?
Always.
We're going to talk about football. The Buffalo Bills last Thursday played a football game against Mac Jones.
They did.
Mac Jones
they won.
They did. They won quite handily, 24-10. It's one of those games that while it was occurring, it didn't seem like you knew the Bills were going to win, but it was just like, at least I was like nitpicking throughout the entire game. I was like, especially at the end of the second half, or the end of the first half. End of the second half was good. But the end of the first half, where it was like, okay, they've kind of squandered 3 offensive opportunities here. They could be up 3 scores, but they're only going to go and up 1 score and a half. So that's not really great. But like in hindsight, the game was never really all that close, right? The Bills had this one in hand the entire way. There are a couple of points I want to bring up just quickly because, like I said, I want to make this recap quick because I feel like everything that needs to be said about this game has been said about this game by other people. So I just want to get my thoughts out. Josh Allen, a vintage Josh Allen game in a good way. He was 2020 Josh, 2021 Josh, and first half of 2022 Josh. 22 of 33 passing for 223 yards, 2 scores, just numerous wow plays, which you've seen ad nauseum on your Twitter timeline by now, I'm sure. The sideline pass where he just runs to the sideline, hops to stay in bounds, and throws Gabriel Davis. Well,
there's a great picture where he is just like right at the edge of the sideline, and he's starting to release it, and where he ends up throwing it is just like all you see are 2 Patriots. You don't see Gabe Davis. You just see 2 Patriots, and you're just like,
Josh Allen's feet are not even on the ground. He is midair, and he is throwing Gabriel Davis open. I'm like, oh my God, he's all the way back. Josh Allen's all the way back, and it is a beautiful thing. Some would say he never left, but he is back. Stephon Diggs is still him, right? He'll tell you that he's him. He very much is him. 7 receptions for 92 yards and a score. That route on the touchdown was just... It's Stephon Diggs. That's really all you can say about it.
The call in the fourth quarter, when all they needed to do was basically just ice the rest of the game, right? And they ran the ball effectively for their first 2 downs, and then on 3rd and 1, they show a heavy look. They're going to run the ball again. Nope, immediate quick slant right to Diggs, first down. That was perfect. I mean, that was just such a perfect, brilliant call. It was a great play by Diggs too, and Allen to just get it right where it needed to be, immediately right after the snap. It was just so good.
That's a Kyle Madden play where it's just like, just put fast dude on a quick slant, pick up 5 yards. But just like also that over the middle of the field contested catch from Diggs where Twitter and my friend on the phone was going crazy that Josh Allen did not hit a wide open Dawson Knox for fewer yards. They were mad that Josh Allen took the more difficult.
Immediately, when that play is happening, I'm looking at Knox. He's wide open. I'm like, just throw it to him. Just throw it to him. And then he throws it to Diggs. I'm like, all right.
Oh, right.
Turns out the person that is making millions of dollars playing the position can see what's going on a little bit better than I can. All right.
Almost like Josh Allen isn't playing from the broadcast view, but but no, like I could like it was very much a no. Yes play. It was great. James Cook, I think, is the biggest story coming out of this game. Had his highest usage of the year. And again, looking at the stats after the game, I feel like James Cook was more involved than the stats kind of implied that he was involved. Because, like, thinking back, I remember James Cook being on the field more than Devin Singletary, I feel like. But James Cook actually played 1 fewer snap than Devin Singletary and had 1 more carry. Cook finishes the game with 14 carries for 64 yards. 4.6 yards per carry, had another 6 receptions for 41 yards. That's good for 20 touches for 105 yards, 5.25 yards per touch. That's pretty good from James Cook, right? Pretty efficient with his touches, pretty productive. Again, he's another guy, has a few wow plays, and then he also had a few other plays where it's like, like if the hole isn't directly in front of you, you're not going to see the hole. But just like he also, it's like he'll have like 2 or 3 plays like that. Then he'll have another play where it's like, really good. You quickly identified that. Another thing that I love from James Cook in this game, he shows growth, right? He shows learning like quick, right? Like he made those few mistakes in the Detroit game. One where Josh Allen, he looked like an idiot because of it, right? Where James Cook just is trying to be the check down option. This is against Detroit. And he kind of like sways backwards. And Josh expects him to continue his momentum forward, but Cook goes the other way, and then the Detroit player drops the interception. In this game, James Cook a couple of times just, continues his momentum. And that's like that's a 1-week thing, right? From 1 week to the next, he's already learning and fixing that. Now, you can make the argument he's an NFL player. 1, he should have been doing that already. And 2, He should be fixing, he should be learning, he should be growing. But it's just good to see that, I guess, this obviously James Cook is making these week-to-week growths. And then Kaiir Elam was a healthy scratch for some reason. So that was
according to Leslie Frazier, I mean, what was it? What crap did they try to tell us? What they tried to
David, they wanted to get a look at Xavier Rhodes. I don't know if you know about Xavier Rhodes, but he's this really young, up-and-coming player that we don't have a lot of tape on, that we don't really know that much about.
Like the petty fan in me wants to spin this as, wow, like they just felt super comfortable sitting their first round corner to against the Patriots because they didn't care about Mac Jones in order to see what they had in Xavier Rhodes. But then the other part of me, the smart part of me, is like, okay, but why? Like, if you don't know who Xavier Rhodes is, like 10 years into his NFL career, why did you sign him? And why did you play him over your first round pick, who maybe you're not 100% sure you have? Like, you know what you have with him?
Leslie Frazier just wanted to see if the roads were still open, or are they closed, right? And I don't know. Do we know yet?
Well, one of the roads is Dane Jackson, and apparently he was sick. So
right, he was ill. Leslie Frazier said, but like that makes the benching of Kaiir Elam even more head scratching. I don't get it. And if Kaiir Elam he's had one game where he's been like noticeably not good. And even in that game, he had some flashes, right? I'm thinking about the Pittsburgh game when George Pickens just picked on him, which that's what George Pickens does to people. But like Elam has not been bad. The benching doesn't make sense. And like when you do try to spin it as we want to see what we have in Xavier Rhodes, it's like, what? Like wild. It's a wild thing that occurred here. That's really all we have to say. David, do you have anything else to say about this Patriots game other than the Patriots are kind of a dumpster fire right now? Why is Matt Patricia calling plays?
There's something really satisfying about seeing the AFC East be like actually competitive for the first time in a very, very long time, where like all of these teams are capable of winning games. But the team that's clearly the worst is the Patriots, and they're just kind of sinking at the bottom because they decided Matt Patricia was going to be the one calling offensive plays.
Yeah. Mac Jones is kind of elusive, though. Mac Jones.
He evaded a lot of sacks. It was a little annoying after a while.
He's got that Mitch Trubisky sneaky athleticism about him, where it's like now he's going to start running read options.
Yeah. No, I mean Trubisky is much more athletic than Mac Jones.
Oh, absolutely.
But probably more on like a Joe Burrow level, let's say. I guess. I don't know.
See, I think Burrow's more athletic than he gets credit for.
I think he is more athletic than he gets credit for, but I think Mac Jones. We're getting off topic.
We're getting off topic. The Patriots are not.
The Patriots
are who they thought they were. They are who we thought they were. So we're done with the Patriots. We'll talk about them here at the end of the show because the Bills do play the Patriots again this year. Granted, that game is probably going to be a little bit different regarding the circumstances going into that game. We really don't know what the circumstances are going to be, but we do know what the circumstances are going to be this week when the Buffalo Bills take on the New York Jets. They're trying to make Mike White nothing again. They bench Zach Wilson. And David, looking at the stats today, this offense has been like shockingly not efficient, I guess, but productive since Mike White took over. We're going to get into the numbers here. So as I said, we're starting our rest of the season preview here. Bills play the Jets this week. The last time the Bills played the Jets, of course, won 20-17. That was a few weeks ago at MetLife. The Jets are coming off of a 27-22 loss to the Vikings. And since benching Zach Wilson 2 weeks ago in favor of Mike White, this team has been putting up insane offensive yardage, okay?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, 466 yards of offense against Chicago. Yesterday, 486 yards of offense against Minnesota. Right? This is a team that people all year have been saying that the Jets are like competent quarterback play away from being a very good team.
And it turns out we were right.
I don't like, look, if you are turning to Mike White to make your offense competent, that's saying something. But like, again, they're putting up 500 yards of offense a game.
Yeah.
You're going to win a lot of football games with that. And their defense?
The defense is still more than capable of winning games. I mean, this is a good Vikings team that they faced, and the Vikings could have just as easily given this game away, as has been the case for most of their season, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
But I do think that this Jets team is still tough, right? And they are well coached. They have talent, especially on the defensive line. They have good corners, I think. And their receivers now are getting actual opportunities to make plays. Like Garrett Wilson has been great with Mike White. He even was like, yeah, I'll go to bat for that dude any week. He's like, which was just like the fact that everything that we see coming out of this Jets locker room has just been, we hate Zach Wilson so much. They have just been burying this dude week after week, and not in a sort of like direct way, right? Like, it's not like, yeah, we need this dude to stop, because like that's not how professional sports teams generally operate. They're not going to say like, yeah, Zach Wilson friggin' sucks and he needs to be off this team. But the fact that a lot of Jets players were wearing Mike White shirts boarding the plane to get to Minnesota, and then you have players who are like, yeah, Mike White, love that dude, he's been great, I'll go to bat for that dude, and it's just like, this is a real bad look for your second-year quarterback who was taken third overall.
I love it. They're just dancing on graves. It's hilarious. But
I mean, the fact that like in the past couple of weeks, Garrett Wilson obviously has been a great player pretty much this whole season, right? He's been one of the like consistent bright spots of this Jets offense. But he's obviously improved with Mike White in the lineup, or Joe Flacco for that matter, for being basically anyone but Zach Wilson. And then you have Elijah Moore last week, finally like existed for this offense, which is just like another nail in the coffin for Zach Wilson. And then you have Corey Davis making this great play late in the game on like 4th and 10 to try and set up an actual game-winning attempt to win it for them. It was just like it feels like every Mike White completion is just another nail in the coffin. It is just ridiculous. I mean, I felt like the way that Zach Wilson ended his season as a rookie last year was fine, right? Like you felt like relatively comfortable about like, okay, if you give him another year, you should be able to see some growth, some progression, some good things to build on. And if anything, he's like actually regressed, which is saying something, because he didn't have much to work with coming out of BYU. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of at a spot where it's like, what are you supposed to do? There's obviously people, you can't even fall back on like, oh, well, he's a likable dude, he hasn't lost the locker room. Clearly he has.
Right.
Like, they're at a point now where everyone can see very, very clearly this is not the guy. And it's 2 years after he got picked. Sorry, you got to move on. There's no other way to put it. I don't think you need to sit there and say, let's just wait until year 3. No, let some other team be patient with him. Let some other team make that mistake, right? Just like, it's time, right? I mean, the Cardinals moved on from Josh Rosen after year 1.
Yeah,
and then the Dolphins moved on from him after they traded for him. And it turns out they were right. Because is he even on a practice squad anymore?
I have no idea. And Baker Mayfield just got cut today. That's
and Baker Mayfield just got cut.
Take it back to that quarterback.
From the Panthers. Like,
Kyle Shanahan's going to make him a Hall of Famer, dude. I don't think you understand. I don't think you understand. But no, like, I don't really want to get into Zach Wilson here because he's not playing in this game. But just like, he's almost, I guess, because not all development is linear, right? But just like, you do want to see signs of growth. As I just talked about with James Cook, right? Even week to week, you do want to see signs of growth in your players. And like, while Zach Wilson maybe has in some areas, he, as you said, he has regressed in other areas. And again, he's kind of I guess he is not benefiting. What's the word for not benefiting? Or he is kind of like the victim of a rebuild that has gone too fast, I guess. And it's like the Jets, they've been rebuilding for a long time, but just the team that they've assembled around Zach Wilson is so good that they cannot sit around and wait for him to figure it out, right? Where it's just like, you think back to Josh Allen in 2019, right? Second year, Josh Allen, the Bills built a solid team around Josh Allen, but like, had they not made the playoffs, they only make the playoffs really because they have Josh Allen, because Josh Allen does make a few big plays for him down the stretch, and the defense is really good. There's a lot of things that go into that 2019 team making the playoffs. And you compare that to this year's Jets team, where it's like, if you have any other quarterback, this team makes the playoffs probably. Like, it is only not making the playoffs right now because of him. Yes.
If you have Justin Fields right now, who was available to them, and a lot of people thought they should have taken and felt like was a good fit for that offense,
would have made sense. Would have made a lot of sense. But anyway, we're not getting into Zach Wilson. He's not a Jet. He will not be a Jet next year. Garrett Wilson, let's talk about him. Dude is a menace, as you said, has been good all year. And now that he has a quarterback who can throw him the football, he's done really well. Again, 8 receptions for 162 yards yesterday. And then last week, 5 receptions for 95 yards and 2 scores. All he needs is a dude who can get him the ball. Garrett Wilson is going to go down, I think, as one of the better receivers of this generation, probably, right? Like, in a couple of years, we'll be talking about him as a top 5 receiver, and then 10 years from now, we'll look back on him being very good. And again, as you said, Elijah Moore getting involved in the offense, at least last week. Corey Davis, when they have a quarterback who can throw it, they have weapons. They are taking advantage of the fact that they have weapons. The running game, of course, Breece Hall was their guy. Imagine if this team still had Breece Hall, whatever. But yeah, they had Breece Hall. He, of course, tears his ACL. They trade for James Robinson, who I think has been hurt and also really hasn't had a role in the offense. Michael Carter is also hurt right now, so they've been relying on Zonovan Knight, who's put up a couple of games in a row here, a couple of really strong games. And then defensively, you look at the stats here, 4th in total defense, 5th in scoring. They've allowed 11 passing touchdowns this year. That's 3rd fewest in the NFL. They're 4th in interceptions with 12, and they're 5th in sacks. This is a well-coached defensive team with a good scheme. Robert Saleh, of course. And then,
pretty talented.
Yeah, you look at the talent, right? Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, CJ Mosley, all guys who can single-handedly impact games and game plans. Quinnen Williams is just a menace, has been, will continue to be a menace. So, like, I know, like, the whole point of this podcast is kind of looking past this game, right, and looking to the rest of the season. But this is not a game that the Bills can afford to look past, and they won't. But just, like, you look at the fact that this team did beat the Bills once already. And now the Bills, circumstances are different now. The Bills are healthier now than they were, and Josh Allen presumably is back, but the back at full health. And he got hurt against the Jets. Granted, it was on the last play of the game, but regardless, this is a good team that was being held back by bad quarterback play, and now they are getting competent quarterback play. So they are a team that you cannot afford to look past. This is going to be a tough game. I think the Bills, end of the day, are the better team. But again, the Jets have beat them once, and they're probably going to be a better team now than they were then. So
I think the other part of this is, like, that first Jets game was so winnable for the Bills in so many different ways. They had opportunity after opportunity and just gave it away. And while facing Mike White, theoretically,
it's
going to be
Mike White.
Right. Like, this is the thing that it's going to come down to, right? It's like Mike White has faced the Bears, who, let's face it, just suck and deliberately suck, right? Like, they're supposed to. They literally gave away a bunch of good players to get more picks and offload a bunch of salary. Like, they know what they are. They know what they're doing. That's fine. And then last week this past week, yesterday, you faced the Vikings, who, like, is that a good defense? Is that actually a good defense? Not really. At least from what I've seen. I mean, when they faced the Bills, they weren't a good defense. When they face quite a few other teams, they haven't been a great defense. I'm sure if we looked up DVOA or something of like that, we would probably see this team probably is. If only we had a producer. We're gonna let's see if we can't. Let's see. Overall DVOA defense. Well, the Jets are in the top 5 for defense, so that's good for them.
They're really good.
They were very good.
Pete writes, Mike White will throw picks. So many balls have been undercut in his 2 games. Oh, yeah. If you can find a prop bet somewhere for like Jordan Poyer 2 interceptions, hammer it. Hammer that. Lock for Jordan Poyer this week.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? There's only so much that a Sean McDermott, Leslie Frazier defense is going to allow Mike White to do against this team. Frankly, honestly, if we want to get super gutsy, you know what? Maybe I'm going to save this for Truth or Rubbish. I'm going to add another thing for Truth or Rubbish.
All right. Yes, I love it.
Remember, we're calling that a teaser. That's
True or Rubbish is happening. Yes. Let's just do True or Rubbish. No, we're switching to the end. No. All right, but yeah, is there anything else to say about this Jets team other than look, again, Mike White
in the game?
We're saying that like Mike White is more competent than Zach Wilson. He's going to keep this team moving as he, 500 yards in his past 2 games offensively, or close to 500 yards offensively. But at the end of the day, he threw 2 picks yesterday. He's going to throw interceptions. He's Mike White.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a winnable game. It's a winnable game for the Bills. At the end of the day, they are the more talented team, and they're playing at home, and it's a revenge game. But don't overlook this game, I guess, is the takeaway here. But it's a little difficult, or it's easy to get to look past this game and be a little excited about the next game on the schedule, which was just flexed today to Saturday night. So it's going to be a week from this coming Saturday at 8:15. The Miami Dolphins come into town. The Dolphins, of course, have been leading the AFC East for much of this season. Not anymore, right? The frauds that they are. That's a joke. I know the Dolphins are actually quite good, and we're going to get into that. But no, the Bills have usurped them finally again on the top of the AFC East standings. But this game, will have playoff implications and seeding implications. The Dolphins right now are 8-4. The last meeting, of course, week 3, that circumstance-riddled game where the Bills had no starting secondary players, also didn't have Mitch Morse, also played, were under the sun for the entire game. So not great. But again, the Bills, they had opportunities to win and they didn't. So props to the Dolphins. Again, that 21-19 loss in week 3. The last game, the Dolphins are coming off of a 33-17 loss to the 49ers, which I'm sure a lot of you watched yesterday. Not a great Tua performance, but Tua largely this year has looked very good. The Dolphins were winners of 5 straight going into this game yesterday. Granted, their opponents were Pittsburgh, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, and Houston. So not necessarily a murderer's row of good teams there, but you got to play the games, right? The Bills lost to the Dolphins, or the Bills have lost to good teams, so it's not really a good comparison to make. But again, you play the games on your schedule, and the Dolphins have beaten these 5 teams, and they were winners of 5 straight going into this game. Tyreek Hill is having a hell of a year. A lot of people going into the year were kind of questioning, could he continue to be as productive as he was in Kansas City going to this Miami offense with Tua Tagovailoa? And he's on pace to shatter career highs.
Turns out he might be better in Miami than he was in Kansas City, which is unfair.
Already has 1,379 receiving yards this year. Perfectly pairing with Jalen Waddle, who is just a dude. Jalen Waddle's a hell of a player. Got hurt yesterday, unfortunately, for the Dolphins and for my fantasy team. But Jalen Waddle already has 972 yards on the year. And then Jeff Wilson is averaging 6 yards per touch since coming to Miami a couple of weeks ago. He's been efficient there in that offense. So what I'm excited about is seeing this offense, right? This Miami offense with these playmakers and this fun scheme, and this is going to be the first time the Bills see Jeff Wilson in this offense. But I'm excited to see how they match up against a Bills secondary that has starters in it, right? I'm excited to see Tre'Davious White play against this team. I'm excited to see Jordan Poyer play against this team and see how that affects the game, if at all, which I'm sure it will. But to what extent is that going to affect the game? Probably greatly. And we're going to, talk about that here. And then defensively, look, the Dolphins have guys that I like defensively for sure. They have Xavier Howard, right? They have what's his name? Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle from Clemson, who the Bills had interest in back in that draft. And that being said, I'm not scared about that's not my concern about this Dolphins team, right? They have players, but the Bills put up 500 yards of offense the last time they played the Dolphins.
This Dolphins defense, I don't know if it's that good.
I'm not concerned about it.
It's definitely got talent. Like Javon Holland is a very good safety. Yep. Xavier Howard is more than capable, although he got his first interception of the year yesterday on a play where he probably would have been better served not picking it off because it was 4th down and he intercepted it like 15 yards away from where the Lions scored.
Contract incentives to hit.
That's true. That is true. But he's somebody that like kind of lives off of getting interceptions, so it's kind of surprising that he has only gotten one this year, and it was of Brock Purdy, who then spent most of the rest of the game not pooping his pants, at least, and actually converted quite a few critical plays in that game for the 49ers. So, like, I'm not really all that concerned with this Dolphins defense. And that was sort of a narrative coming into the season, right? Was that they were able to retain their defense coordinator from the year before, Josh Boyer. And so this great defense that, Brian Flores helped create and engineer. Oh, well, that's going to be, pretty much the same because they kept the coordinator. It's like, okay, sure.
They're going to have their cake and eat it too.
That's right. And turns out that wasn't the case now. They're able to exchange that essentially for a far better offense than they probably could have even imagined because Mike McDaniel turns out really is that type of dude that everyone kind of propped him up as during the offseason. And so you take your trade with that, but, when you're going against another team that has a really good offense like the Bills, things get a little tricky. Things get a little dicier. Now you're in shootout mode. And I mean, when it comes into that, you're probably going to take the team who has the better defense. And that's easily the Bills. I mean, easily. And not only that, but the Dolphins are also, I believe, Teron Armstead is also going to be out in this next game for the Dolphins and maybe even this Bills game. I don't know. But you have him. I know they just put Austin Jackson pretty much done for the year. It sounds like because they just signed Eric Fisher.
Yep.
Forever. That's going to help them.
That's interesting. That's a good story, maybe.
Sure.
It's a cool thing to laugh about on a Bills podcast.
But, the rest of that offensive line really isn't that good. And, you have Mike McDaniel who can kind of help cover up a lot of those deficiencies. But Armstead in particular is so important to how that offense functions because he just gives them enough time to have to work in the pocket and go through his reads and progressions, but also allows them to really run the ball effectively because he's one of the best offensive tackles in the game when he's healthy. The problem is he's not always been healthy in the past couple of seasons. He's always been missing games. So now you're at a point where if he's not playing in this game for the Bills, I think this is a pretty easy Bills win. If he is playing, I think it's much more even, but I'm still leaning towards the Bills because it's in Buffalo. And as someone pointed out earlier, Dolphins coming to Buffalo after 2 straight on the West Coast.
On a short week
because it's on a Saturday. This will be their 3rd straight road game. And their upcoming game against the Chargers is Sunday night because that got flexed into Sunday night. That was originally going to be a 4:00 game, got pushed into Sunday night. So now you're coming back after that game to Miami on a Sunday night. Your whole schedule is kind of at least a little out of whack. I mean, it's not ideal situations for them for the next couple weeks. This is probably their toughest part of the schedule for them. They had a nice easy stretch of 5 games, and they did exactly what a good team should do in those 5 games. They won them, and they won them convincingly. That's what a good team is supposed to do. The Dolphins are a good team, but now they took on the Niners and lost. And I mean, the final score was a little more, made it look different than what that game actually played out as. It was a very close game pretty much until the very end when they got that defensive touchdown and yada, yada, yada. Now you have to face the Chargers, who just lost to the Raiders. Chargers, who are certainly talented and have a great quarterback, who I'm sure it wants to show everyone just how good he is to the team that passed him up, right? But also his offensive coordinator is Joe Lombardi, who doesn't seem intent on showing anyone how good Justin Herbert is. And you have Brandon Staley, who is trying his darndest to make the whole idea of running the football an efficient idea. Like, he wants to make running the football effective against him specifically. Like he doesn't, his team can't really do it all that well, but teams can definitely do it against them because that's all they do. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. They spent a lot of money to try and fix that defensive line, to try and make that horrendous run defense better. And like, I'm sure technically it is better than what it was last year, but it's not enough because that team is still atrocious at defending the run. So
yeah, he's really living up to the Lombardi name there, Joe Lombardi. They're in LA. They're really killing it, but that's unrelated to the Miami Dolphins, which, like, we bring up the schedule, right? 2 back-to-back road West Coast games, and now a short week primetime Buffalo game. And like, you look at week 3, again, the circumstances surrounding that game for Buffalo. And like, if you think back to our podcast we did after that game, we just sat here and we were like, there's really nothing else we can say. Like, there's nothing tangible you can take away from this game because it was such a weird game, just marred with circumstances or whatever, or plagued with just stupid things that happen, right? The Bills playing under, like, occupying the space directly underneath the sun, and it being 110 degrees or whatever, and they don't have their starting center, and Josh Allen throws the ball 63 times in said ridiculous weather, and like, no Jordan Poyer, no Tre'Davious White, no Micah Hyde, right? These are things that most of them, I mean, Micah Hyde's not going to be back, but these are things that the game's in Buffalo this time. It's not going to be that, if it is that hot, we have huge issues, but like, it's going to be normal weather, or at least weather that Buffalo is used to at this time of year. And again, they're going to have Jordan Poyer, assuming nothing happens. They're going to have Tre'Davious White, assuming nothing happens. So this team, again, the circumstances are different, more favorable for Buffalo all the way around right now. And again, I don't want to say an easy Buffalo win, but again, someone wrote in the comments earlier, I'm more concerned about the Jets game than I am about the Dolphins game. I would agree. I think
I'm
I
not
do.
so sure about that. I'm
not so sure. I'm concerned about both. Like, I'm not saying I think both are losable games, but I think they're both winnable games as well. Like, I see more, I guess, paths to the Bills losing against the Jets than I do against the Dolphins, which both could easily happen. But I guess if I have to pick one that I think they're more likely to lose, I think it would be the Jets game.
Yeah. To answer a question that I could not answer earlier, Miami is currently ranked 16th in defensive DVOA. Minnesota is ranked 18th in defensive DVOA. So extremely middle of the pack for both of these teams. Yeah. About as expected. I'm not concerned about Miami's defense as a whole. Like,
no, again, cool players, but
yeah, they'll have a couple plays, they'll have a couple things, couple calls ready for this Bills offense. But also, this is not the same Bills offense that they faced in week 3, and frankly, they're probably better than what they were in week 3, and they kind of kicked their ass in week 3. So I don't know. It's, at least from a yardage standpoint, they did, and now it's time to actually execute in the red zone. Which, by the way, the Bills have been doing a lot better for the last couple weeks. So
Ken Dorsey woke up. Well, we do have to talk about. We didn't talk about Ken Dorsey. He had a really good game against the Patriots.
He finally figured out motion and play action are both good things.
He's learning. Constant growth here.
He saw the tweets. He probably saw the Cover One film room. Let's be honest. I mean, check it out. Totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, because I totally saw it too, Kyle.
You retweeted it, David. With me in the crayon suit. I'm in the crayon suit, and it said when Bills dismantle teams by 30, and then I'm wearing a suit, and it says Ken Dorsey downfall. I thought that was a good meme. You're going to talk about the Bears here.
Sure.
Or I should say the Justin Fields show, because he's really the only thing that's going on in Chicago. They are 3-10. The Chicago Bears are, despite the MVP hype that Justin Fields is getting in the Cover One staff chat, which is fun. But yeah, no, the Bears are 3-10, coming off of a 28-19 loss to Green Bay. I think they had the lead going into the fourth quarter, which they didn't win. 28-19 loss. They have lost 6 straight. They are on a bye week this week, and then they play the Eagles. So let's be realistic here. They will probably be losers of 7 straight when they host the Bills.
And you know what? That's where they need to be. This Bears team has kind of nailed exactly what they needed to do this season, which sounds stupid to say
but you're
for a team that
right.
currently has 3 wins on their record. But I mean, what do they need to do? They need to show that Justin Fields was actually capable of being their franchise quarterback. Check, in my opinion. I mean, they've shown that like he and this offense can work together. This offense coordinator can actually meld together and put together a good enough offense to make it work. Despite the fact that their one good receiver on the roster was Darnell Mooney, and he got hurt. So now they're kind of stuck throwing to Chase Claypool, who came into the team on the trade deadline, and then I guess Byron Pringle. I mean, this is kind of where they're at.
They got guys there in Chicago.
They do have Cole Kmet, who has been has had a very good second season at tight end for them, which is a nice another plus for them. Ryan Pace spent so many picks and assets on tight ends. One of them had to work out, right? So
his parting gift. But
the offensive line is terrible. The defense, when they had guys like Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn helping the team, or just on the team, they looked capable for the most part. You kind of saw like, okay, this is more or less, you have a picture of what this defense is supposed to look like. Then they got rid of both, and it's kind of like, all right, they kind of suck. And you're kind of left with like Jalen Johnson trying his best at corner, Jack Sanborn, who is an undrafted rookie, who is kind of already feels like somebody that Bears fans are going to end up overrating in coming into 2023, which is fine. They're allowed to do that. And yeah, this is sort of just where the Bears are at. But you've shown that you have a proof of concept for your quarterback. You've shown a legitimate plan or picture for your defense, and you still lose a bunch of games and are in great position to get a bunch of high draft picks. I see this as a win-win.
This is an absolute win. Yeah, no, you're right. Just looking at Justin Fields' stats here, as you said, he has shown, that, at least to me and you, that, yeah, he's a guy that you can develop along. Mostly, I don't want to say mostly, but making a major impact with his legs, I will say. Completing 62% of his passes for 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns, 10 picks. Whatever. He has 905 rushing yards.
Yeah.
That is the 7th most in the NFL. And he has 8 rushing touchdowns. He has more yards and touchdowns than Jonathan Taylor does this year.
Yep. Yeah.
They are getting very good running back production out of their quarterback. And then they also have David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. So that trio, right? Montgomery, Herbert, Justin Fields, that is a very fun rushing attack. It's fun on paper, and it's actually producing very well. They are the best rushing attack in the NFL right now statistically. They have 2,459 rushing yards. That is 400 more than the team in second place in rushing yards. Then Atlanta's in second, and Chicago is blowing them out of the water. Yeah. But again, that's kind of where their offense starts and finishes, right? They have the backs. Yep. They have Justin Fields making an impact. No weapons. They have Darnell Mooney, who's hurt. And Chase Claypool, say what you will about Chase Claypool. I personally am not a huge Chase Claypool fan. Not really.
I'm not either.
And then defensively, 5th worst defense in the league statistically, 5th worst in total defense. Allowed the most points in the NFL, I do believe. Allowed the 3rd most rushing yards.
They're the worst in DVOA, by the way. 32nd defense in DVOA, and not by a wide margin. Las Vegas is right behind them, but yeah, it's not good, but it's fine.
It's what they need.
It's totally fine.
Exactly.
It's what you need.
Yeah, they're just generally devoid of talent right now. There are signs of hope, right? There are reasons to be optimistic about the future of this team. They got the quarterback, presumably, which is the biggest piece that you need. And it seems like a good culture, I guess, is being built there, at least the foundation of it. But this isn't the year, right? The year's kind of going as we expected it to go. So is that really all we have to say about the Bears?
I think that's enough time spent on the Bears. One last thing. Let's see. Justin Fields has how many rushing yards this year?
905.
905. Lamar Jackson currently holds the single season quarterback rushing record at 1206 in 2019 when they went like 14-2.
Right. He might.
I mean, there's how many games left? 5?
Yes. No, they have a bye, so 4.
Oh. 300 yards or so. Yeah, about 300 yards in 4 games. It's possible. It's possible.
It's we'll see.
Possible.
We'll see. But yeah,
see.
just him Fields. Is he just him?
Oh yeah.
I think he is.
I think so.
All right. Moving on to what could be argued is the toughest remaining game on the Buffalo Bills schedule now. Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati is a very weird team. They're a team that I have not been able to form an opinion on, a definitive opinion, because it changes every single week. They'll do, as soon as I'm high on them, they'll do something stupid. And then as soon as I'm low on them, they do something good, like beat the Chiefs. The Bengals are 8-4 this year. Beat Kansas City yesterday, 29-24. Then they beat Tennessee the week before, so they have a nice little stretch here, though. Tennessee right now just got dismantled by Philly yesterday, so it's like, how good is Tennessee? I feel like every time Tennessee plays a good team, they just get dismantled.
Weird how that works, right?
Not wrong.
Turns out when you play in the AFC South and you're able to just piss on a bunch of crap teams for 6 out of your, 17 games, you feel pretty good about yourself.
Well, yes. So Cincinnati, they are winners of 4 straight, 6 out of their last 7. They are just a team that is loaded offensively, right? Joe Burrow is Joe Shiesty, Joe Cool, whatever you want to call him, hell of a player. Everyone, we know what Joe Burrow is at this point. He is that guy. Joe Burrow is like Josh Allen is that guy in some ways. Patrick Mahomes is that guy in other ways, but Joe Burrow is just like very, very heavy that guy energy from Joe Burrow. Can do a little bit of everything. Some things better than other, but Joe Burrow, very well-rounded player. Jamar Chase, one of the best receivers in the NFL, top 5, I would say, at least. And then he and T. Higgins form one of the best 1-2 punches in the NFL at receiver. And then Joe Mixon, when he's healthy, is pretty good. They have Samaje Perine, who's been filling in quite effectively here, or efficiently, for
had 100 yards
Mixon
yesterday against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I mean, it was on 34 carries, so, it wasn't like a super efficient day, but regardless, I think that also speaks to an improvement that the Bengals have made throughout the season, which is, they spent so much money trying to get this offensive line just not be a sieve, right? Like they didn't get like a bunch of superstars or anything, because there's not a lot of superstars that are available as free agents at offensive line. But getting Ted Karras was an upgrade over Trey Hopkins. Getting Alex Kappa was an upgrade over Quentin Spain, or their rotation at right guard, which they were still rotating in the Super Bowl. They still didn't know who they wanted to play at right guard in the Super Bowl.
They'll figure it out.
And then
give them a little bit of time. They got it.
And then they get Lyle Collins. And the first couple of weeks, it looked like all the same crap over and over again. It looked like they didn't know what they were doing. They couldn't handle stunts. They couldn't block well up front on run plays. It just looked like they spent a bunch of money and threw it down the drain. Now, in the last couple of weeks, it looks like they can run the ball more effectively. They can pass protect more effectively. Joe Burrow has been handling the pocket better. This team just looks so much more well put together. It looks like And for them to do that after a Super Bowl loss, and especially the way that they started the season, just sort of like
0-2,
in really rough waters, to now, I mean, they're probably pretty easily walking away with that division again.
Yeah.
I mean, winning that division in back-to-back years, I don't care that the Browns kind of just blow because the defense sucks and you had to play Jacoby Brissett for 11 straight games. Baltimore is still a good team, if not a great team, or at least a competitive team. And Pittsburgh, again, not a good team, but like they're capable of beating the doldrums of the NFL as they did with Atlanta yesterday. So, I mean, this is not like the easiest division in the world. We're not talking about the AFC South. We're not talking about the NFC South. We're talking about like a somewhat competent division. And the Bengals are probably going to walk away pretty handily with this division, and they should feel pretty good about it. And they should feel really good about where they are right now. I mean, they're 8-4. They, in terms of overall DVOA, they rank 6th.
Yeah, they're 6th in total offense.
Yep, they're the only teams ahead of them are the Niners, the Ravens, the Eagles, Cowboys, and Bills. The Bills are number 1 overall offense.
Hey, ball don't lie.
That's right. In terms of, and like this is not a team that like the offense gets so much of the attention because they have a bunch of superstars like Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Joe Mixon and obviously Jamar Chase. But like this defense, Lou Anarumo, man, it will always amaze me that this team decided to hire Lou Anarumo essentially as the 5th choice, right? Like they tried to hire Todd Grantham, they tried to hire Jack Del Rio, they tried to hire Dennis Allen, who like would have probably done a good job because he did a great job in New Orleans. They tried to hire some like DB's coach from the Giants or something whose name escapes me. They tried to hire so many other people before they finally settled on Lou Anarumo. And Lou Anarumo has this defense playing at a pretty high level. They're 11th in overall DVOA. And they've been good. And this is not like a defense that's full of superstars or anything. They have good players. Jesse Bates is a really good player. BJ Hill and DJ Reader are both very good players. Trey Hendrickson is a very good player. But like overall, this is not like a superstar type of defense. This is just like a really well-coached defense where all the parts just really work well off of each other. They play their assignments well. They tackle fairly well. They're just a smart defense that's really well coached. That's tough. It seems like they know how to adjust for their opponents. They know how to be in the right spots when they're supposed to be. And you couple that with an offense that's now starting to get really, really hot, it's going to get tricky this is going to be a very, very interesting game for the Bills. And if certain things go the right way, this is a Monday night game, right? This is the last Monday night game of the season.
Yeah.
This could end up being a game that decides the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Could be, yeah.
And it could go either way for the Bills and the Bengals. I mean, if the Chiefs drop one of these winnable games, I haven't looked people keep saying that their schedule is super easy moving forward, which it probably is, but I haven't actually looked at it. Let's see if our producer can pull this up relatively quickly while he banters and distracts people in a chit chat. But all right, so the Chiefs play the Broncos next. That's a dub. They play the Texans after that. They play the Seahawks. We'll see. The Seahawks are tough. I don't know if they're beating the Chiefs tough, but they're tough. They play the Broncos again. Boy, the NFL really thought that was gonna.
They thought that was money. They thought they were printing money.
God,
nah, close.
But they do play the Raiders in Las Vegas for their last game. And the Raiders have won 3 straight.
And the Raiders, they always put up a fight against the Chiefs. Always.
They do. I mean, they almost beat them earlier this year before blowing yet another lead.
Yeah.
And like the Raiders are starting to, it seems like the Raiders are starting to catch on a little bit. I mean, I don't know how good they actually are because they're still, 5-7 and they still have a bunch of problems on the defense. But like in Las Vegas, that game really could go either way. And in a division, and that's a big game because it's a divisional game, right? So I'm just saying this could be a really big game. Like you said, this is definitely going to be the toughest game for the Bills, I think, for the rest of the season. This is a really well-coached team that Cincinnati has. It's a talented team on offense and a fairly talented team on defense that's just extremely well-coached. I just think that it's going to be very, very tough. Is this in Cincinnati or in Buffalo?
In Cincinnati.
Oof.
Yeah. I don't feel great about this game. It's a concerning game, the most concerning game on the schedule. I think it's going to be a shootout, right? I think this is going to be exactly what the NFL was hoping that it was going to be when they scheduled this in this time slot. And again, just looking at more of the stats, as you said, 6th in DVOA. Bengals are in overall DVOA. Bengals are also 6th in total offense. That's with Jamar Chase missing a large portion of the season. 4th in passing, 7th in scoring. Defensively, they're 10th in total yards and have allowed the 12th fewest points. So just a very well-rounded team, as you said, well-coached team with a lot of talent, especially offensively and defensively, just, well-coached, well-schemed. So it's going to be one of those games, I feel like, that it's just going to be really good. It's going to be the talk of the town for the next week after the game is played, and people are going to be crossing their fingers like, I hope that's the AFC Championship. I hope we get the rematch there. And again, if this does end up having seeding implications, perhaps we get the rematch in Buffalo, or we got to go back to Cincinnati if, it does end up having to be for the first seed. So it's interesting. It's concerning. And I guess if I had to pick one that I see the Bills losing, right? It's a winnable game, but if I had to pick one that I think the Bills could lose, I guess the biggest chance of losing, it's this one, certainly. Do we want to talk about New England? Is there anything to talk about regarding New England to close out the season?
We kind of said all we needed to say when we talked about recapping the previous game. I mean, they're kind of lost on offense. They don't really know who they are on offense, and the defense is like pretty well coached because it's the Belichicks that are coaching it. And they could do a solid job, but there's only so much that a defense can do when your offense is lost, dazed, and confused.
Yeah, it's difficult to talk about that game just because we don't know what it's going to mean and what the Bills are going to need from this game. Like, we're not going to preview this game 5 weeks out when we don't even know, like, if the Bills are playing for the division title, if they're playing for the number 1 seed, or if they're playing for nothing and the starters don't play, right? Like, it's difficult to preview, but the Patriots in general, look, there's nothing about this current Patriots team that really scares me. The Bills have had their way with the Patriots for the last couple of years at this point. And like Mac Jones, fine. Ramondre Stevenson is cool, but I mean, I'm not overly concerned with anything they're doing. So David, I guess just to wrap up this conversation here, last 5 games, what do you think the Bills close it out at? What do you think is their record in that 5 game stretch?
I think it's 4-1. I think they lose to the Bengals on Monday night, which will be a tough pill to swallow because I think it'll end up costing them the 1 seed. But they will still be they will still be in a good position in the playoffs. And I do think that they definitely, if they lose to the Bengals, they shouldn't feel bad about that because that is a tough team to face. So I think that they will just take care of business. That'll put them at 13-4 for the season, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Pretty good season.
Really good season. Right. I would have signed up for that at the beginning of the year. No, but I agree. I think I agree. Low writes 3-2 next 5 games, in my opinion. I could see that, right? I could see a loss to the Jets. I could see a loss to the Dolphins. But again, at the end of the day, I do think the Bills are just, at the end of the day, talent is going to. But they've already lost to them both once. I just cannot see them dropping 2 games in one season to either the Jets or the Dolphins. I can't see that happen.
Hey, another pretty jarring disparity between the Dolphins and the Bills? Special teams.
Really?
The Bills are second in special teams DVOA. The Dolphins are dead last.
Hell yeah.
Now, hold on. I'm gonna make sure, because I'm pretty sure I know who's leading.
Is it old
that
friend?
Dolphins. It might be.
Is it an old friend of the show?
Oh my God! Why is there? It's taking forever to load. It sure is.
It
is
be.
Danny
It's
Crossman.
not Danny Crossman. No. How is he still in the? How is he sticking around?
He is a cockroach. He survives everything, Kyle.
So what did Mike McDaniel do? Did he just come in and he was like, okay, I'm bringing my staff. Everyone else, you can stay. You're cool. Like,
more or less. Like,
this guy's cool. No, I like him. This guy laughs at my rap reference. He can stay.
God, I remember being at Dolphins training camp in 2021, watching some of their practices, and anytime I heard someone just yelling, just straight up yelling on the field, it was always Danny Crossman yelling at some poor, future insurance salesman. Like, just like, dude, you need to chill out. Just relax. Why don't you look inwardly, Danny, and figure out what the problem is instead of yelling at other people?
Is special teams coordinator the most supply and demand position in the NFL, or I guess coaching position? And just like there's only a few good ones, and then the other ones just kind of get recycled around and stick around past when they're, when they should.
Probably. You know what? We should probably. I might look into that. I might look into that now. Just sort of like who has just terrible special teams. And the Bills have good special teams largely because they've actually put money into special teams, right? Like Tyler Matakevich and Tywan Jones and Saran Neal. Like, they obviously value special teams, and they should, because you don't want to be in a position where you're kind of just like, oh, we're just going to fumble every other punt return, Isaiah McKenzie / Marquez Stevenson. We're going to just, give up 40-yard returns every other time, whatever. But, you also realize that, like, someone like Danny Crossman just shouldn't be coaching.
He should. I don't know what he's still doing.
It's kind of incredible.
David, it's time for True or Rubbish.
Let's do it.
If it's true or rubbish. Let's go. This is the segment where I give David a number of topics, typically ranging from like 2 to 5. I think it's 5 this week after David audibled and added one. So yes, I give him 5 statements this week, and then he tells me whether or not they are true or rubbish. So David, are you ready to commence here?
Let's do it.
True or rubbish? 3 away wins in 12 days with a snowstorm and limited practices is the most impressive coaching feat of Sean McDermott's professional career.
It might be true.
This is all after all. Can believe
might
it.
Be true.
It was true.
Might be true.
I mean, I'm trying to. Okay, so
2017 is pretty impressive.
2017 is impressive. Frankly, I'm thinking more about 2018, getting that roster to 6 wins.
I agree.
Shouldn't have happened. That was like a 3-win roster, right? Yeah, like they managed to get 6 wins out of that. 3 wins on the road in 12 days that's just tough. And Cleveland obviously wasn't a pushover, but that was obviously a winnable game. But in that sort of scenario, that was a tough win to try and get. Going to Detroit had won 3 straight coming into that game, right?
At least 2.
At least 2. And that offense was cooking, and they played super well. Should have gone into overtime. Maybe they would have had a chance to win it there, but Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs find a way, as they often do.
Called game.
and of course Tyler Bass finishes it off. That's a tough win, and then this Patriots game. I mean, obviously the Patriots aren't a great team. That defense is still pretty good. In fact, I would even argue it's better than it's probably getting credit for. Even if that offense is a hot mess, the defense was tough, and they managed to do fairly well against that defense. All on the road, all within 12 days. It's incredibly impressive, and especially coming off of a 2-game losing streak, 2 games that were extremely tough pills to swallow. I mean, that Jets game in itself was a tough one. Losing the Vikings game the way they did was another just like, ugh. I mean, you really felt like things could have easily gone into the toilet after that. Especially, and given the circumstances that they had, it probably should have. And they managed to just come together, figure it out, and push forward. And that a lot of that comes down to coaching and building a culture and having leaders in that locker room, both players and coaches who just are able to get their guys to focus and do what they're supposed to do. So,
yeah, it's a stretch where the circumstances are more, I guess, impressive, or the circumstances that he overcame are more impressive than the actual wins, because like Cleveland, you should have beat Cleveland. Detroit, you should have beat Detroit. New England, you should have beat New England. But again, to do so on the road in 12 days, you win all of these games, and there's a generational snowstorm happening that you need to fight through and get your players out of. And, that just kind of throws off all your routine. Like, one of the games literally got moved from Buffalo to an away game in Detroit.
You lose a whole home game.
Right. That impacts practices. That impacts meetings. That impacts routine. Just like everything is changed, right? And athletes and coaches, they're creatures of habit. Like, everyone's a creature of habit. But just like athletes in particular, they have their routines, and they all got shifted. And McDermott finds a way to overcome that, and his coaching staff. But we'll give McDermott his flowers here. Finds a way to overcome that and gets these 3 wins at a much needed time. Very impressive. But again, that being said, McDermott's had some really impressive stuff. Again, 2017, just a team of rejects and nobodies, right? The island of misfit toys, and he gets them to the playoffs. The next year, an even worse team, and he gets 6 wins out of them. With a Josh Allen who should not have been playing in the NFL at that point. No. Certainly not a quarterback in the NFL, and he gets 6 wins. Incredible stuff. He's a good coach, right? Despite what Twitter tells you sometimes, Sean McDermott's actually a pretty good head coach.
A very good head coach, and who has not lost his locker room, by the way. God, the things that some people say.
No, I love it. No, because I've heard, right? Those are rumblings, right? I've heard. I don't want to say that.
There's rumblings. There's rumblings. I mean, I don't think so, but I think there's rumblings. There's rumblings that the locker room is starting to turn against McDermott and Frazier. I mean, they've got to go.
I had one of my friends tell me, he was like, I've heard is what he said. Yeah, I've heard that the players don't like McDermott, and I'm like, what are you like? Sean McDermott just picked up Von Miller and drove him to the airport. Like, do you think that's like a sign of a team that hates his coach, that hates their coach? They're calling to get rides? Like, yeah, really bad relationship.
Silliness.
Okay.
Moving on.
True or rubbish? Odell Beckham Jr. signs with the Buffalo Bills.
Rubbish.
That is rubbish all after all. It was all rubbish.
That's rough.
That's rough. I don't know where he'll end up signing. Probably sounds like Dallas, which is fine. Whatever, I guess. Yeah. Good for them, because Jerry Jones has shiny new toy syndrome. Whatever. It is what it is. I'm not exactly going to be like super bummed out that they miss out on Odell Beckham, because who knows when he'll actually be able to play. But yeah, it'd be nice to have, but meh.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain, of course, of the Bills, because it looks like OBJ was in for a visit on Friday. Probably going to make his decision tomorrow between New York Giants, Buffalo, and Dallas. Mm-hmm. Right now, I just based off of what's going on or what we're reading, I guess kind of the reports coming out, Buffalo seems kind of like in third in terms of his preference. But again, that kind of, I feel like, is how Bean and company want it. Like, I feel like you never hear about how free agent visits go with the Bills unless a player, like I think back to LaShawn McCoy with Jeremy Maclin in 2017, right? Just like that's really the only time it gets out is if a player actually tweets about it. Like this, like this time we only know that he's here because Josina Anderson tweets that he's here, and then Chef Darian Bryan posts on Instagram that he made him a private meal.
Right.
So like,
which by the way, if anyone saw the menu of that meal, absolute fire. Like that, I want that like right now. Like part of me wants to go to Buffalo just to like how much does Darian Bryan cost?
A lot. You need to like, I don't think I pass his restaurant all the damn time, but I don't think it's like open. Like I think you need to rent out the actual restaurant, and then you get a big group and you split up the cost.
This is one of those where it's like if you have to ask, you can't afford it.
It's one of those things. But yeah, no, restaurant's beautiful. He's got a beautiful setup, and I'm sure his food's delicious. He's been on or I've had his food. Oh, I did. I had it. He made a rasta pasta. Yeah, delicious. It was a fettuccine alfredo with some sauteed peppers. Delicious. He's very good. That's not what he served OBJ though. He served OBJ 4 courses, including gooey butter cake, which I'd never heard of. But as I wrote in the Cover One staff chat, I was like, I like all 3 of those words independently of each other. So I would assume I like them together as well.
You would think so.
But yeah, it doesn't look, at least as of right now, that's not kind of what the media is suggesting. That's not what the tea leaves are suggesting. But again, that's not what Bean wants. I don't think Bean wants to be the perceived favorite to land OBJ. So we'll see what happens. I won't be heartbroken either way. Moving on. True or rubbish? Josh Allen is still firmly in the MVP race.
True.
This was true all after all.
That's bolder than you think, Dave.
It was true.
I wouldn't say he's leading the MVP race. I think that somebody like Patrick Mahomes probably is in front, and he's probably in a tier with or Josh Allen is probably in a tier with, Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts probably. But yeah, it would not, if they're able to finish out the season, and especially if they finish this stretch undefeated, you probably get quite a few Josh Allen votes for MVP at that point. I'm not so sure that they do go undefeated. Like I said, I think they lose that game in Cincinnati. But I do think that he still is in that conversation and that he should be.
Is Justin Fields in the MVP race?
No, because they're 3-10.
But he's the most valuable. Name a player more valuable to their team than Justin Fields. I love that. I love people with that argument every year, where it's like, look at bad team. Name a player more valuable to that team.
Hey, listen. Take away Justin Fields from the Bears. What are they? They're probably like what, 2-11 right now, as opposed to 3-10.
3-10, yes.
Take away Patrick Mahomes from the Chiefs. They're definitely 3-11 right now. Like they're done.
All right, David. This is the one that you included because I did have another one. I had Bills finish the season as number 1 in the number 1 seed in the AFC, but you already said that's rubbish earlier. So we're just gonna go to yours. True or rubbish? Tre'Davious White gets his first interception of the season this Sunday against the Great White Hope.
I say true.
This was true all after all.
That makes a lot of sense, given that you added it. That makes a lot of sense.
Gosh, wouldn't that be great, though? Wouldn't that be great if Trey White intercepts Mike White?
It'd be confusing.
That's white on white crime.
No. That was the layup joke. Come on, you got to do better than the low.
No, I don't. What are you talking about?
You got to do. The people come to this podcast expecting good, nuanced, well thought out comedy.
If somebody tuned into this podcast right now, they think you're about to start some spoken word poetry.
That's the goal, David. As I said off air, I want my brand to be the most bohemian member of the Bills podcasting sphere. I don't even know what that word means, but I like it a lot. Turtlenecks are back, David. It's turtleneck season. I don't know what else to tell you.
Oh, boy.
Do you disagree? Are you going to tell me I'm wrong?
You're going to sit there and tell me that I'm wrong? Am I wrong?
What is it? What's that video? The Wicked Witch of the East, bro. You're gonna tell me I'm wrong? All right. Does that wrap it up?
That wraps it up.
You're white on white crime. Look, low hanging fruit. Sad. The people expect better.
No, they don't.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the Cover One YouTube channel. It's the button's somewhere over there. Make sure to check out cover1.football. Wait, hold up. Donuts, right? You look like you have opinions on fancy coffee. Thank you so much, Donuts. I actually did. This is what the people have tuned in for. I just purchased a Keurig, not a Keurig machine. It's actually a Cuisinart machine. Which has got a weird comment. That isn't like it's an individual serve machine, but also it grinds beans. So it's like an individual grind per cup of coffee, which is incredible. So I've been really experimenting. I've gotten into Ethiopian beans recently, a delicious brew. So yes, Donuts, I do have opinions on fancy coffee. Subscribe to this channel. Check out Cover One Football if you feel so kind. If you're, feeling cool today, check out Cover One Pass. Become an insider today, as you can see here. Exclusive members-only content, written in-depth analysis. Greg Vorse is killing it over there. Uber Hansen's killing it. Sports Rock 2. There's probably another writer that I'm forgetting. Chris Seth. How could I forget? David, you're killing it with the recaps. Bunch of great stuff over there on One Pass. And again, this just in addition to in-depth film breakdowns and things of the sort. And also you get access to the Cover One Premium Slack, and you can communicate with your favorite Cover One members on a regular basis and just members of the community. Huge community over there, always talking about great stuff. I got $57 a year. What a value. There's no better value in all of sports in general. So subscribe to Cover One Pass, become an insider. Also check out BetUS and Underdog Fantasy and use promo code Cover1 on both of them. Make sure to check out the Cover One YouTube channel. As I said, all the great shows, Air Raid Hour, Film Room, Cover One Buffalo, Disguised Coverage, Going Deep, all the great shows. Check them all out and subscribe to their iTunes feeds. Make sure to follow David on Twitter at
You can follow me at DFAUXY or at DFoxy. Kyle, where can the people find you on the Bird app?
You can find. Oh, I was gonna say you can find me going to buy, exotic coffee beans, and you can also find me on Twitter at Kyle Silagyi. Thank you guys for watching, and we will talk to you next week. Bye bye.